All right, let's dive right into 12th century Japan because we're talking about a truly pivotal moment in a massive civil war. This is the story of the Battle of Yashima, and believe me, it is a perfect example of how brilliant strategy can just absolutely crush seemingly impossible odds.
Now, you might be picturing huge armies clashing with swords and steel, but you gotta throw that idea out the window. What makes the Battle of Yashima so legendary, so talked about, is that it was literally won by pure cunning. Oh, and one of the most incredible feats of archery in, well, maybe all of history. We're talking about deception, pure audacity, and a single shot that has, echoed through the centuries.
So, this really is the core question, isn't it? I mean, how on earth can just 150 soldiers, let me say that again, 150, defeat a fully fortified army and its entire fleet? It sounds totally impossible, right? You've got this tiny raiding party going up against a powerful dug-in clan that's protecting the emperor himself. So how'd they do it? Well, stick around because the answer is a straight-up masterclass in psychological warfare.
Okay, so part one, the Taira's last stand, a cornered clan with a royal prize. To really get why this victory was so huge, you have to understand the stakes. For the Taira clan, Yashima was basically their last major stronghold. I mean, they were on the ropes, but, and this is a big but, they held an absolutely crucial advantage, the legitimacy of the throne itself.
So this whole thing is happening during what's called the Genpei War. We're talking a brutal 5-year civil war that totally reshaped Japan. It was a massive showdown between the two most powerful clans of the time, the Taira and the Minamoto. So Yashima wasn't just some random skirmish. No way. It was a critical move in the final endgame for control of the entire country. So the Taira clan basically retreated and holed up at Yashima, which is on the island of Shikoku. And if you look at the map, its coastal position was absolutely perfect for their navy, which was super powerful. It let them build a strong fortress and even throw together an improvised palace. This place wasn't just some military base. For them, it was their new capital, their last sanctuary. Okay, so let's talk about the Taira's advantages, because they were huge. On paper, their position seemed almost unbeatable. First, you've got a fortified coastal palace. Then, a massive fleet. But the real kicker, the most important part, is that they had the child emperor, Ontoku, with them. And not just him, but the sacred imperial regalia. The sacred sword, mirror, and jewel. This gave them just immense political and spiritual legitimacy. So attacking them, it wasn't just hard. It was basically an attack on the throne itself.
All right, part two, a general's gamble. We've got a storm, an argument, and a seriously daring choice. So you've got the Minamoto commander, this guy, Minamoto no Yoshitsune, staring down this fortress. And he's got a choice to make. Does he play it safe, or does he risk absolutely everything on one single audacious move? Well, what he decided to do next is exactly what makes him a legend. And man, the clock was ticking. So on March 18th, just 4 days before the battle, a massive storm just batters the Minamoto fleet. Total disaster, right? For most commanders, this would have been a clear sign to delay, regroup, and wait it out. But not for Yoshitsune, no. For him, this was an opportunity. He realized that the very storm holding him back could also be the perfect cover for a surprise attack. And this moment right here, it shows a total clash of mindsets. You have one of his commanders, Kajiwara Kagetoki, making what seems like a cautious, sensible suggestion. He wants to add reverse oars to their ships. Basically, he's planning an escape route before the battle even starts. Yoshitsune's reaction, he flatly rejected it. He was basically saying, we're not retreating. For him, there was no plan B. He grabbed just 5 boats and plunged them headfirst right into the storm. Okay, part 3, the Army of Fire. This is where we get to the core of Yoshitsune's genius. He absolutely knew he couldn't win with brute force. He had to win with his mind. His whole plan was to make his tiny force seem like some kind of unstoppable legion. So think about it from the Taira's perspective. They're dug in on the coast, their fortress is facing the water, all their defenses are pointed out to sea. They are 100% expecting a massive naval fleet to appear on the horizon. I mean, that's the only logical way to attack them, right? But Yoshitsune, he didn't do the logical thing. Of course he didn't. After landing his men under the cover of that storm, he marched them all night, looping completely around to attack the Taira fortress from the land. He put his entire force directly in their blind spot. It's like the Taira were staring at the front door, totally clueless that Yoshitsune was already sneaking in through the back. And here is the trick, the absolute core of the deception. Yoshitsune ordered his men to light tons of bonfires in the hills behind the fortress. So imagine you're a Taira soldier. You look behind you and suddenly the hills just erupt in a sea of fire. In the darkness, what does that look like? It looks like a massive army is getting ready to storm your palace from the rear. Panic. Absolute panic sets in. They were convinced they were surrounded. So how many men did it take to create this illusion of a giant army, to light all those fires and cause all that panic? 150. That's it. Just 150 men. With that handful of soldiers and some well-placed bonfires, Yoshitsune convinced the entire Taira clan to abandon their so-called impenetrable fortress and run to their ships. It was a bluff of truly epic proportions. And here's part 4, an archer's challenge where a legend is born. So the Taira had been completely tricked, but the battle wasn't quite over yet. As the Minamoto soldiers rushed down to the shore, the whole thing took this bizarre and almost theatrical turn. And it leads to one of the most famous single acts of skill in all of samurai history. So try to picture this scene, okay? You've got the Taira fleet just offshore, bobbing in the waves. The Minamoto army is lining the beach. It's a total standoff. And then, out of nowhere, the Taira do something completely unexpected. They issue a dare. A single Taira boat pulls forward. On it, a court lady places a beautiful red fan on top of a long pole. And the challenge is clear. It's a taunt, aimed right at the Minamoto's honor. They're daring them, saying, can any of your warriors actually shoot this thing off? We're talking about a tiny, distant, moving target. Well, Yoshitsune knew he couldn't let this challenge go unanswered. He called upon his best archer, a young warrior named Nasu no Yoichi. And just like that, the entire morale of the battle, and maybe Yoichi's own life, now rested on a single arrow as he rode his horse out into the waves.
Let's just stop and think about how insanely difficult this shot was. Okay, first he has to ride his horse into the turbulent sea. The wind from the storm, still blowing. The sea, super choppy. His horse is unsteady beneath him. And the target? A small fan swaying back and forth on a boat that's also rocking in the waves. I mean, this was a shot that bordered on the completely impossible.
So, victory at Yashima. An ending, but also a new beginning. As the story goes, Nasu no Yoichi offered a quick prayer, drew his bow, and let the arrow fly. And it was perfect. It struck the fan dead center, shattering it in a display that just awed everyone on both sides. That one single shot completely broke the Taira's morale and sealed the Minamoto victory at Yashima. So, the outcome was clear. A decisive victory for the Minamoto clan. The Taira were forced to flee. It was Yoshitsune's brilliant gamble, combined with Nasu no Yoichi's legendary skill, that drove the Taira from their last major stronghold. But, and this was another big but, it wasn't a total annihilation. Yeah, they had lost their base, and they had definitely lost their nerve, but most of the Taira fleet actually managed to escape into the inland sea. So they were beaten for sure, but they weren't destroyed. And this sets the stage for one last tragic confrontation just a month later at the Battle of Dan Noura. And that really leaves us with a pretty fascinating question to think about, doesn't it? The Battle of Yashima proves that a brilliant mind and a perfect shot can win you a battle. But the fact that the Taira escaped shows that winning the war, well, that's something else entirely. It really makes you wonder, right? Is the legacy forged in one single incredible moment of brilliance? Or is it made in the grueling, difficult campaign that has to follow?